This week's 2-episode release acted as a mid-season finale of sorts, as it really felt like the story was transitioning from one phase to the next, especially with Rex's conversation with Hunter at the end. With the Empire after Omega, the Batch can't hope to simply find a place to lay low and relax away from the Empire's gaze. They have to actively figure out why Omega is so important to what's being done on Tantus, and put an end to it if they have any hope of settling down someday. But going directly into the episodes, we pick up with Captain Rex and Rex's Senator Singh from earlier stories. Season 3 has done a really good job so far of incorporating familiar characters from earlier in the show, like Roland Durand from the premiere, and now Senator Singh and Chuchi. But there are still a lot of other characters who I feel like should appear in these final 8 episodes to give their stories some semblance of a conclusion, since many of them we likely won't get to see after the show concludes. Singh is meeting with Chuchi regarding a growing desire for independence among planets, and whether it was purposeful or not, I liked the way it gave us some more details about the Imperial Senate. Having recently watched A New Hope, the first thing that popped into my mind here was how the Empire dissolved the Imperial Senate, and that kinda goes hand in hand with what Chuchi's talking about, with him being concerned that planets may unite and oppose him, hence the reason he got rid of their platforms. I feel like both of their roles were fairly limited in the story beyond this opening scene, and I'm not really sure why Singh warranted an assassin clone targeting him, but I do hope we get to see more of them and what comes from this conversation in the future. As I mentioned, we get an assassin clone in this opening scene, and although we don't get many answers right away, these 2 episodes as a whole give us a lot more context on what they really are, especially after Rex's team of renegade clones capture the assassin in a fun piece of action. I really loved the tone that it had, with the political intrigue and high stakes and assassination pursuit all added to it. Although there are some that go unnamed, Rex's team of clones include Hauser, Greer, Samson, Fireball, Nemec, Echo, and Gregor, although many of them are killed in this week's action. By the time this episode ends, it looks as though Rex's crew is down to Hauser, Echo, Gregor, and himself, with them even losing their base in the process. Having them stationed in the 10th Monastery was certainly a choice, but there was something poetic about it given its role in the Clone Wars movie. It was the location for one of the earliest battles in the war, and its collapse and ruin by the end of these episodes really drive home the fact that this era is over with, and all that's left from it is the death and chaos of war. I do wish that they hadn't included the shot of the monastery up in smoke in the trailer, because while it added to the tone there, that was something that preoccupied my mind for much of the first episode, already knowing that the place was going to burn and fall apart by the end of everything. Once we finally get inside of it, it reminded me a lot of the Rebel base on Yavin, and it felt like an early Rebel cell made up entirely of clones. Even though many of them died, I could see that as a point Rex continues to work towards off-screen for the rest of the season. Although they don't learn much about the assassin clone while interrogating him, we as an audience do learn that they keep an electro capsule in their teeth, with a similar purpose to cyanide, and their identifying number is wiped as well. They become a blank slate with only one purpose: to kill for the Empire. Back on Tantus, a new clone is activated in order to neutralize the other one, and at first I thought this voice sounded raspy, making me think of Tech. Later on it sounds more like a voice modulator, but it still got me thinking about Tech and how likely it is that he comes back. The more we see of these assassin clones, the less likely I think it is. Although we never see his face, and we learn at the end that he does survive going over the edge, there isn't anything important that stands out about him that makes me think Tech. I'm at the point where I'd almost rather learn and see more of this division of soldiers than have the Tech being alive storyline. After learning that the assassin was after Omega as well as the Senator, the Bad Batch gets brought in, and there were a few things interesting I found here. Rex is reluctant to do it, knowing that they can be useful, but I think he feels guilty about bringing them into this war when he knows what they want is a peaceful life away from the Empire. And I had also completely forgotten about Hauser's connection to Crosshair from the Ryloth episodes, so he still holds a grudge against him and doesn't completely trust him. Surprisingly, no fight breaks out between them at any point, but they are eventually able to come around. When we pick up with the Bad Batch, Omega is playing with a toothpick, and I wonder if it's a method for her to try and sympathize with Crosshair and learn more about his process as a soldier, which she started questioning last week on Pabu. Once they arrive on Teth, Wrecker jokes about the other clones not looking happy to see them, and to me it was big that he didn't mention Crosshair specifically, which was the real reason Hauser was upset. Wrecker compares it more to when the Batch were the outliers from the clone army, and it feels as though any grudges are gone between them and it's back to old times. The new assassin clone arrives in a new ship design shortly after Echo leaves to rendezvous with Gregor, and him being able to fully scale the peak made me think he's got some physical enhancements. The voice modulator also reminded me of Death Troopers, so I could see these assassins being an early version of those, because there's no way a normal clone is climbing the tower that quickly. Although Crosshair is hesitant to share anything at first, Omega talks about the experiments she saw regarding M-count, but none of the clones have any idea what they could be. At this point in the galaxy, the only non-Imperial scientist that would have any idea what M-count refers to would probably be Force users, which could be how Ventress gets pulled into the story. Crosshair does eventually share what he knows about the assassin clones, that they're a division of clones trained as specialized operatives and initiated into a deep secret cover program run by Hemlock, all of which he knows because they tried to make him one. That attempted reconditioning may also explain Crosshair's hand problem. When they go to talk to the captured assassin, his lines were pure bone-chilling, really sounding like there was no clone left in there anymore. He tries to turn the others on Crosshair, as if he were hiding something, but I couldn't tell if he recognized them or not. The rest of the episode mainly consists of action. Now that the assassin knows about Omega being there, that becomes his new sole focus. It was nice seeing so many different clones in action beside each other, even if it was just for a short time. The episode ends on Wolf and the Empire arriving, and it was a much smaller force than I would have expected for a target as important as Omega. It also made for a really weird ending spot, almost like it would have been better just combining them into one longer episode than making it a 2-episode week. The second episode from this week is also made up of a lot of action as the clones flee the monastery with Omega. I was really hoping we would get to explore more of the location a bit, maybe get a nod to the Clone Wars movie like some lightsaber marks left on the wall somewhere, but I didn't notice anything. It really felt like Hunter and Wrecker took a backseat to Crosshair in this one, with him getting pretty much all of the focus during the action. I found it confusing how he seems to be the only one able to sense when the Empire was on their tail, when that is literally Hunter's special enhancement. I get that Crosshair has become an increasingly important character, with his return to the Bad Batch, and as his condition seems to worsen every week, but it would be nice to shift some focus on the other members a little more often. Wolf comes in with his commandos, clones, and TK troopers, and I didn't notice any huge discrepancy in how they were used. The TKs are the first group to pursue in the forest, who are all then knocked out, and when Wolf lets Rex and the others go at the end, it's all commandos and clones behind him, but that was it. That part did make sense though, because any TK probably would have reported something to the Empire about Wolf letting them get away, because their loyalty lies with the Empire and not their commander. But the clones, although they do serve the Empire, do still have some loyalty to their brothers, even those on the other side of the war. It would still make sense for the Empire to discover what Wolf did, and for that to be the catalyst that makes him join Rex and Gregor. As the action began in the forest, I found the use of stun shots versus kill shots to be very inconsistent. Initially, I had made a note of how the tables had turned. When the show began, the Batch were using stun shots on the clones because they knew it was against their will, and now the Empire was using stun shots to get to Omega, while the clones don't care anymore about who lives and dies. Rex and Crosshair were both firing normal blaster shots, killing the soldiers, but Hunter's one shot that was shown was a stun, but then Rex's last shot shown was also a stun. With how much it changes on screen, it feels like there's a purpose behind it, but it doesn't seem to stay consistent either. We then get a one-on-one fight between Crosshair and the assassin in the water, and I liked the way it represented Crosshair's choices, but I'll save that one for another video later this week. The last thing I wanted to touch on in this video was the confrontation between Rex and Wolf. Wolf is shocked to see Rex is still alive after hearing that he had died in the crash following Order 66. But what really stood out to me here was the lighting, sort of basic but still powerful in the moment. The Imperial ship cast a strong light onto Rex and the clones, contrasting the darker perspective of Wolf and his soldiers. Simple good bad, light dark. And then when Echo arrives, it reflects over to where it's almost the exact same situation on both sides. Clones standing out in front of their ship, facing each other. And Echo's ship casts a light on Wolf as he starts to move away from his orders and realizes what he's doing is wrong. He's hunting a child and about to shoot down his own brothers. Although he doesn't go with them at the end, allowing Rex and the others to escape does leave the door open to him eventually reuniting with Rex and Gregor where we see them in Star Wars Rebels. What did you think of these episodes of The Bad Batch? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video and subscribe for coverage of The Bad Batch as a new episode premieres every week. And remember to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching, and remember, the Force will be with you. Always.